Hi everyone, welcome back to session 3 of this chapter called Principles of Inheritance and Variation. What did we learn in session 2 of this chapter then? We studied about one gene inheritance, that is nothing but about a monohybrid cross. So what are we going to study in today's session 3? We are going to study about the monohybrid cross, then we are going to study about the test cross, and we are going to study about incomplete dominance with a suitable example, then about codominance and about the blood groups, right? Moving across this very important session, that is, in the previous session we studied about Mendel's laws. As we know that Mendel's whatever idea that was put forward by Mendel was formulated in the form of laws, which is put across as Mendelian laws, that is the law of dominance and law of segregation. So what is law of dominance? Actually, we have come across that in session 2. So once again, we'll brief up as to what are these laws all about. So law of dominance, what does it state? So characters, as we say, the characters or traits are controlled by discrete units called factors. We have come across in the first session that Mendel called that there is something that is transferred from the parents to the children without the stable factors, and according to John Gregor Mendel, he called that something as what? He called them as what? Factors. And as we know, those factors were later on called as what? They were called as gene. As we know, gene is nothing but the structural unit of heredity. And as we know that the factors or genes always occur in pair. So what is the first very important feature of law of dominance? Characters are controlled by discrete units called factors, and always the factors occur in pair. And in a dissimilar pair of factors, one member of the pair dominates and that dominates the other. So what is the third point? What is the third point? In a dissimilar pair of factors, one member of the pair dominates the other. And the factor which appears in the F1 generation is called as the dominant factor. That is, in a dissimilar pair of factors, one member of the factor is going to express itself. The one which is expressed is called as dominant, and the other one which is suppressed by the dominant character is called as a recessive character. So the factor, that is the factor which appears in F1 generation is called as what? Dominant factor. And the factor which fails to express in F1 generation is called recessive factor. Hope you have come across in session 2 of this very important chapter. So Mendel took a tall pea plant and crossed it with a dwarf pea plant, right? So capital T with small t. Then what were the gametes? So when he crossed this is called syngamy. So capital T, small t. This is called homozygous tall, and this is called homozygous dwarf. Right, let me explain this law of dominance with an example. That is, we have come across in one gene inheritance. This is called heterozygous tall. So here we can make out that capital T, as I said, always capital tallness is dominant, and small t we call it as recessive. So tallness is a character which is dominant, and dwarfness is a character which is recessive. According to the law of dominance, as we know this in F1 generation, which is a hybrid, which is a heterozygous tall, one of the character is dominant. Which is dominant? The capital T. Tallness is dominant over dwarfness. So that is what it means here. The factor which appears in the F1 generation is called dominant factor, and the factor which fails to express itself in the F1 generation is called recessive factor. So hope you have understood what is law of dominance. What is the first feature? Characters are controlled by discrete units called factors. So according to Mendel, he was of the opinion that there is something that is transferred from the parents to the offspring. What is that something according to John Gregor Mendel? It was factors. Later on we call them as what? Genes. So these factors occur in what? Occur in pair. Genes never occur in single. That is, the genes always occur in pair. And in a dissimilar pair, like for example, capital T, small t is a dissimilar pair. Factors, one member of the pair is dominant. Here tallness is dominant. And the factor which appears in the F1 generation is called dominant factor. And the factor which fails to express in the F1 generation is called recessive factor. That is about the law of dominance. As we have already come across one gene, inheritance. That is the law of segregation, which is also called as law of purity of gametes. When a pair of factors for a characters are brought together in a hybrid, they tend to segregate or separate during the process of formation of gametes. So what is the law of segregation or law of purity, which is also called as law of purity of gametes, state whenever a pair of factors for a character are brought together in a hybrid, they tend to segregate or separate during the process of formation of gametes. Hence, that is what we mean by law of segregation. I'll tell you why it is called law of purity of gametes. In these crosses, you can observe that the gametes that are produced are carrying a single allele without being mixed or contaminated with another allele. So why it is called purity of gametes then? So in these crosses we can observe that the gametes that are produced are carrying a single allele without being mixed or contaminated with the another allele. So we can say the gametes are pure. We say the gametes are pure. Hence we call this law of segregation also as what? Purity of gametes. So whenever a pair of factors for a characters are brought together in a hybrid, they tend to segregate or separate during the process of formation of gametes. And in these process, the gametes that are produced are carrying only a single allele without being mixed or contaminated with another allele. Hence we say the gametes are pure, and hence this law of segregation is also called as law of purity of gametes, right? Why it is called purity of gametes? In this process, we observe that the gametes that are produced are carrying a single allele without being mixed or contaminated with another allele. Hence, the gametes are pure, and hence this law is also called as what? Purity of gametes. That is what? Though the alleles stay together in the F1 hybrid, they do not show blending. Blending means what? Mixing or mix up with each other, and during the process of formation of gametes, both the alleles separate or segregate from each other. Right, this is what the law of segregation states, which is also called as law of purity of gametes. Hope you can see in this schematic diagram, that is a tall pea plant was crossed with a dwarf pea plant, and all the F1 were heterozygous tall. Right. So, how do we get F2? F2 is obtained by selfing F1 into F1. This is F1. That is F1 into F1. And hope you know, we remember that we go for a checkerboard or a Punnett square to explain the genotypes of the F2 generation, where we go like this. So, here we see that capital T, small t is F1, and this is F1 crossed, where we get capital T, capital T, capital T, small t, small t, small t. Right, this is homozygous tall, and this is heterozygous tall, and this is homozygous dwarf. So this expression capital T is to capital T small t is to small t can also be mathematically expanded in the form of binomial expression. So what is that binomial expression? AX, that is AX plus BY whole square. So, as I said, this is capital T is to capital T is to small t is mathematically expanded in the form of AX plus BY whole square, where the gametes occur in the frequency of half. Right. Now, how the expression is expanded in the given form? That is, as I said, The gametes are expressed in a form of half, in an equal frequency of half. That is half capital T plus half small t whole square. As I said, this is mathematically expanded in the form of what? Binomial expression. Binomial expression. So that is half capital T plus half small t into half capital T plus half small t, which is, that is 1/4 capital T plus half capital T small t plus 1/4 small t. So this is what we get the expression expanded in the given form. So as I said, this is, that is, as you know, it is what? Capital T is equal to capital T small t, that is 1:2:1. So 1:2:1, which we call it as what? Genotypic ratio. This we call it as genotypic ratio. What is phenotypic ratio? Phenotypic ratio is equal to 3:1. That is 3 tall is to 1 dwarf. What is the genotypic ratio of the monohybrid cross? That is 1:2:1. As I said, this can be mathematically expanded in the form of binomial expression, that is ax plus by whole square. And as I said, the gametes occur in a gene is occurring in equal frequency of half. That is, the expression is expanded in this form: half capital T plus half small t whole square, that is equal to half capital T plus half small t into half capital T plus half small t, where you get 1/4 is capital T, half is capital T small t, and 1/4 is small t. So in these crosses, we find that the gametes that are produced are carrying a single allele without being mixed or contaminated with another allele. So we say that the gametes are pure. The gametes are pure. Hence, this law is also called as what? Law of purity of gametes. Hope you have understood this concept of monohybrid. As I said, one gene inheritance is also called as what? Monohybrid cross. So the law of segregation or law of purity of gametes is verified by Mendel's monohybrid cross. In the previous session, I have explained what is monohybrid. Mono means what? Single. Hybrid means what? It is a progeny obtained by crossing two plants. So what is monohybrid cross? It is a cross between two plants differing in one contrasting character. So what is the contrasting character that was taken here with reference to height of a pea plant? That is a tall pea plant crossed with a dwarf pea plant. That is crossed with a dwarf pea plant. So tall pea plant is crossed with a dwarf pea plant, right? Hope you have understood this law of segregation or law of purity of gametes. This is a very important part of this chapter, which is usually asked in the examination, right? Moving on to the back cross or test cross. Now let us go for, so what is test cross? We'll study the test cross for the monohybrid cross. This is for monohybrid cross. We'll go for this. What is test cross? Test cross is nothing but crossing F1 into parental recessive. So what is, why is it done? That is what I am going to explain in the next session. So to verify whether the F1 hybrid is homozygous or heterozygous, that is the reason why test cross is done, right? Now what is, how do we go for a test cross? Test cross is done by crossing F1. F1 is what? The hybrid into parental recessive. That is, what is F1? Capital T small t into small t. So this is called the test cross. Why is it done? It is done to verify whether the hybrid is homozygous or heterozygous. So how is the test cross obtained? Test cross is obtained by crossing F1 into parental recessive. Right? You can go for a checkerboard. That is capital T into small t. Cross this one, capital T, small t, small t, that is small t. So how many are capital T, small t? How many are small t? That is 1:1 ratio. So what is the test cross ratio for a monohybrid cross? So what is the test cross ratio for a monohybrid cross? This is also a very important concept to be learned. So what is test cross? Test cross is crossing F1 into parental recessive. And why is it done? A test cross is done to verify whether the F1 hybrid is homozygous or heterozygous. So how do we get F1 into parental recessive? Let us take the example of a monohybrid cross. So what is F1 here? Capital T, small t. So F1 is capital T, small t, which is what is the parental recessive here? Parental recessive is small t, that is the dwarf plant is what? Small t. Then go for a checkerboard. So take the gametes on one side. So capital T, small t on one side, small t on the other side. So when we go for this checkerboard, what do we get? How many are capital T, small t? As we know, this is what? This is heterozygous tall. This is also heterozygous tall. This is homozygous dwarf. This is also homozygous dwarf. So what is the ratio we get? 1:1. Hope you have understood what is test cross ratio. So what is the phenotypic ratio for this monohybrid cross? Monohybrid cross phenotypic ratio is equal to 3:1. 3 is what? 3 tall is to 1 dwarf. This is phenotypic ratio. What is genotypic ratio? Genotypic ratio is equal to 1:2:1. That is 1 capital T, 2 is capital T, small t, and 1 is small t. Then what is the test cross ratio? Test cross ratio. This is the test cross ratio for the monohybrid cross, that is 1:1 is the test cross ratio. This is the genotypic ratio. This is the phenotypic ratio for a monohybrid cross. Hope you have understood this. This is a very important. The ratios might be asked in the exam. What is the phenotypic ratio of a monohybrid cross? What is the genotypic ratio of a monohybrid cross? Or what is the test cross ratio of a monohybrid cross? So phenotypic ratio is 3:1. Genotypic ratio is 1:2:1. And what is the test cross ratio? 1:1. Moving on to the next, that is the back cross. Already we have come across what is test cross. Now what is back cross? It is a cross between F1 hybrid of an organism with any of the parent. So back cross will be like this. That is F1 into either capital T or F1 into small t, either of the parent. Their test cross was F1 into parental recessive. Here either of the parent, either it might be a tall parent or a dwarf parent, is called the back cross. Hope you have understood what is back cross and test cross. Test cross is crossing F1 with the parental recessive Here back cross is crossing F1 with either of the parent, either the dominant parent or the recessive parent. Now what is the significance of test cross? As I already said, it is a method devised by Mendel to determine the genotype of an organism. And in this cross, the organism with unknown dominant genotype is crossed with the recessive parent. As I said, what is the significance of the test cross? To verify whether the F1 hybrid is a heterozygous or homozygous. Already I have explained all this, the segregation of alleles. As I said, in these crosses, the gametes that are produced will carry only one single allele and they are not mixed or contaminated with the another allele. So what do we say? It maintains what? The purity of gametes. So segregation of alleles. Now moving across the next very important concept of this chapter called incomplete dominance. It is also called as partial dominance. It is also called as partial dominance, or it is also called as blending. blending phenomenon. So what is the other name for it? Incomplete dominance, or it can be called as partial dominance, or it can be called as a blending process. What is this incomplete dominance? In a pair of heterozygous allele, one of the allele fails to suppress the other allele completely. As a result, both the alleles express in an incomplete manner. They express in an incomplete manner. So in a pair of heterozygous allele, one of the pair fails to express completely. That means it fails to suppress the other character completely. So what will happen as a result of this? As a result of this, both the alleles are expressed in an incomplete character form, and that is called incomplete dominance. According to the law of dominance, the dominant character completely expresses itself, suppressing the recessive character in the F1 hybrid. But here what happens? The dominant character is failing to express completely in the F1 generation. It is not completely suppressing the recessive character, where you get an incomplete or intermediate, you get an intermediate character. How do we explain this incomplete? So this is something like it's a deviation from Mendelian principles, right? According to law of dominance, the dominant character had to express completely, but there is a deviation in Mendelian law of dominance, where we find that an intermediate character appears, which is not of either the parent dominant character nor of the recessive character. So it is an intermediate character. So as I said, hence it is called partially. So the dominant character is partially expressed in the F1 generation, and you also call it as blending. Blending is what? It's a mixed character. It's a mixed character. How do we explain this incomplete dominance? We can explain this incomplete dominance with an example called Antihyrum species, or it is also called snapdragon, or it is also called 4 o'clock plant, or it is also called Mirabilis jalapa. Mirabilis jalapa, or it is otherwise called 4 o'clock plant, or it is called snapdragon, or it is also called as dog flower. So these are the names for this. So the incomplete dominance is explained with an example. So what is this incomplete? How do we explain this incomplete dominance? As I said, incomplete dominance was observed in Antihyrum species, which is called snapdragon, when a true breeding red color flower, plant bearing red color flowers, is crossed with a true breeding white flowered plant. So what do we get? Instead of getting red color in the F1 generation as a hybrid, we get an intermediate color called pink color. So we get an intermediate color. So what do we get? We get an intermediate color, that is called pink color. So according to the law of dominance, we had to get which is dominant here. The red color is dominant. So how do we explain this incomplete dominance? A red colored flower was taken, plant bearing red color flower was taken, and it was crossed with a white plant bearing white flower. So what do we get in F1 generation? Instead of getting red color, we get an intermediate color. Pink is an intermediate color. It is neither red nor it is white. So as I said, that is what I said. The one of the allele fails to express completely, suppressing the other recessive character. So what do we get? You get an intermediate character. What is that intermediate character? That is the pink color. Let me explain this concept with a diagram. So what it is here, you can see here the red color flower was taken, plant bearing red color flower, and a plant bearing white color. So here, so red, how do we write red? Capital R into white, that is small r, small r. So what are the gametes? Capital R. Here what are the gametes? So when we cross syngamy, you get capital R. So here, according like how we have come across in monohybrid cross, here we should have got red color. But what do we get? We get pink color flowers. So this is F1 hybrid. This is a pink color flower. So this is what we call it as incomplete dominance. So the red color is failing to express completely in the F1 generation, suppressing this white color. So we get what? An intermediate color called pink. So when F1 pink colored plants are self-crossed, pink and white color, you get a ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 1. Here we find that both the phenotypic ratio and the genotypic ratio is 1 is to 2 is to 1. Let me explain this. So here we have taken, that is F1 capital R small r. How do we get F2? That is F1 into F1. So this is taken here like this. So here we get what? Cross this one with this one, capital R, cross this one with this one, we get an intermediate color what? This is red, this is pink, this is pink, and this is white. Right? So this is again what? Pink, and this is white. When we come across, how many are capital R, how many are capital R, small r, how many are small r, small r. So capital R is nothing but red. Capital R, small r is pink. Then small r is white. So how many we get? 1 is to 2 is to 1. So in this we find that both the phenotypic ratio and the genotypic ratio is one and the same. That is 1 is to 2 is to 1. 1 is what? Red is to, 2 is pink is to, 1 is white. This is a very, very important concept we will learn, which is quite commonly asked in the exam for 5 marks. Explain the process of incomplete dominance with a suitable example. So you have to explain what is incomplete dominance with a suitable example, taking a 4 o'clock plant or Malabas jalapa, plant bearing red color flower, and cross it with a plant bearing white color flower. So you get what? An intermediate, the progeny will be what? Bearing what color? Pink color. If you want to go for F2, self-crossing F1 into F1, where we get a ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 1. Hope you have understood this incomplete dominance, which is slightly deviated from the Mendelian law of dominance. Moving across, the next, as I said already, the red color flower is crossed with white. You get an intermediate, that is pink. And going for F2 generation, what is it? You get capital R, small r, capital R, small r, and small r, small r. As I already said, this is how I have explained in the previous slide. So what is the ratio? 1 is to 2 is to 1. So genotypic ratio is also same and the phenotypic ratio is also same. Whereas what did we get in monohybrid cross? The phenotypic ratio was 3 is to 1. Genotypic ratio was 1 is to 2 is to 1. So almost it is similar to the genotypic ratio of a one gene inheritance or monohybrid cross. So this schematic representation is very important for you all. You need to practice writing the schematic representation. Only when you write the complete explanation of this incomplete dominance with a schematic diagram, then only you will be getting full 5 marks. So you need to practice writing the schematic diagram. Either it might be the monohybrid cross or it might be the incomplete dominance. Hope you have understood what is incomplete dominance. Moving on to the next very important is codominance. So what do you mean by codominance? You will understand very well when I start with a concept called blood groups. Right, which is a very good example for multiple allelism. Blood groups. So when the alleles for two contrasting characters are together in a heterozygous condition, both the alleles express the character together, and that is called codominance. So classical example is what? AB blood group. Here we find both A group as well as B group are together and both are dominant. Hence the name codominance. Right. Now we'll move across what is blood group. Actually blood group is a very good example for multiple allelism. What is multiple allele? First we should understand genes occurring in more than one form, alleles occurring in more than one form is called multiple allelism. And a classical example for the multiple allelism is ABO blood group. ABO blood group, right? Now, actually Karl Landsteiner in 1900 determined 4 types of blood groups. What are the 4 types of blood? Hope you might, this is a very, very important concept to be learned not only from examination point of view. Many of us will not know what is blood group, what are the types of blood groups, and why it is necessary for us to know about the blood groups, particularly at time of emergency, particularly at the time of blood transfusion. Can you give any group of blood? No. We need to, and the blood should match. That is called compatibility. Only the we are going for blood transfusion, or we are donating blood to save a person, not to kill a person, right? So we should know about these blood groups, and this is a very interesting concept to be learned by all of us, right? Now, as I said, ABO blood group is a classical example for multiple allelism. Karl Landsteiner, he is the discoverer of the blood groups. Landsteiner identified 4 types of blood groups. 4 types of blood groups. What are the 4 types? How many types of blood groups are there? Many of us will not know this, right? A, B, AB and O. So these are the 4 types of blood groups. So Karl Landsteiner in 1900 identified or determined how many types of blood groups? 4 types of blood group. What are they? Group A, Group B, AB and O. And what is the basis for identifying this blood group? The main basis for identifying this blood group is based on 2 very important proteins called antigens and antibody. Antigen and antibody. Both are the types of proteins. So the antigen antibody interaction is responsible for the identifying the blood groups. So based on this interaction of the antigen and antibody, we come across the blood groups. So what is blood group? So blood group is a classical example for multiple allelism. What is multiple allelism? When the alleles occur in more than one form, we use the word called multiple allelism, and a classical example is ABO blood group. And as I said, Karl Landsteiner in 1900 determined how many types of blood groups? 4 types of blood groups. What are they? Group A, B, AB and O. How do we identify these blood groups? Based on the antigen and antibody reaction. The blood group is identified based on the antigen and antibody reaction. Now let us know what is this antigen and what is this antibody. Where is antigen found and where is antibody found? So antigens. Antigens, as I said, they are also a type of protein called agglutinogen. Agglutinogen. So it is a type of glycoprotein. Antigen is a type of glycoprotein, and these antigens, there are 2 types of antigens, antigen A and antigen B. Hope you remember I told you. How do we identify the blood groups? We identify the blood groups based on the antigen and antibody reaction. What are antigens and what are antibodies? Both are 2 types of protein. So first let us study about the first one called antigen. What is antigen? It is a type of protein. Where is it found? It is found in the RBC membrane, red blood cells, RBC membrane. Hope you know. The blood consists of what? Blood cells, RBC, red blood cells, WBC, that is white blood cells, and blood platelets. So where do we find these antigens? We find the antigens on the membrane of RBC cells. So what are the 2 types of antigens you come across? Like we come across A and we come across B. And as you know, due to the immunological response, the blood group of man cannot contain the same antigen and the antibody. Hope you remember that. We will not have the same antigen and antibody. So what are antigens? It's a type of glycoprotein, and there are 2 types of antigens, namely antigen A and antigen B. Where are they found? They are found on the RBC membrane. Now what are antibody? Antibody is also a type of protein called agglutinin, and this antibody is found in blood plasma. What is it? Where is antigen found? Antigen is found in the RBC membrane. Very, very important. Antigen is found in the RBC membrane, whereas antibody is found in the blood plasma. Again, antibody is of two types. Antibody, we write it as small a here. Then to differentiate antigen from antibody, we write it as in small alphabet B. So what are the two types of antibodies? So what is this? That is antigen antibody reaction is responsible for blood group. How do we identify a blood group? Blood group is identified based on the antigen antibody reaction. What are antigens? Antigens are nothing but both are types of proteins. So antigen is a type of protein called agglutinogen, and this, it is also, as I said, it is a glycoprotein, polymer of sugar. Then there are two types of antigens. What are the two types of antigens? Antigen A and antigen B. Where are they found? They are found on the RBC membrane, red blood cell membrane. So what is antibody? Antibody is called what? Agglutinin. It is also a type of protein. Hope you have understood what is antigen and antibody. So what is antibody? Antibody is nothing but a type of protein called agglutinin, which is found in the blood plasma. What are the two types of antibody? Antibody A and antibody B. Here, in order to differentiate the antigen from the antibody, we use a small alphabet. Here we write it as capital A, capital B. Here we write it as small a and small b, right? So this is about how do we identify a blood group. Blood group is identified based on the antigen and antibody reaction. So what are antigens? Antigens are a type of protein found on the RBC membrane. What are the two types of antigens? Antigen A and antigen B. And what is antibody? Antibody is also a type of protein called agglutinin. And where is it found? It is found in the blood plasma. The liquid part of blood is called what? Plasma. What are the two types of antibody? Antibody A and antibody B. Now, how do we identify the proper? As I said, the blood group, the type of blood groups in man is identified based on the presence or absence of antigen and antibody. You will understand this better with a tabular column. So this is blood group and this is antigen and this is antibody. This is very important concept, as I said, not just from the examination point of view. We as human beings, as we know, blood is in circulation in our body and we should know what is blood group and what are the types of blood groups, because at time of emergency we also will be needing blood or we need to donate blood also. So we need to know about this possible blood groups. So how do we identify the possible blood groups? Based on the antigen and antibody reaction. Right. So blood group A. What are the four types of blood groups? A, B, AB and O. So whoever's blood group is A will have antigen A and antibody B. Hope you remember, due to immunological response, the blood group of man will not contain the same antigen and the antibody. You should remember that. So whoever's blood group is A will have antigen A and antibody B. Whoever's blood group is B will have antigen B and will have antibody A. Whoever's blood group, hope you know AB is a classical example for what? For codominance. AB blood group is an example for codominance. Will have both the antigens but will not have none of the antibodies. So it will not have either antibody A or antibody B. O will not have both the antigens but will have both the antibodies. So this is the possible blood group of man. Right? You may wonder why A cannot give for B, B cannot give for A. So when, as I said, when it comes across with the same and an antigen and antibody, blood will clot. As I said, we go for blood transfusion to save a person, not to kill a person. So if at all the blood clots, it is called agglutination. Blood should not clot, right? So if the same blood group, but I think all of you know, AB here, we know that O is called universal donor. O group is called universal donor. AB is called universal recipient. It is called universal recipient. O can give for anybody. O can give for A, B, AB and O. But AB can give only for AB, but can take from all the other four groups. So we call universal recipient, whereas O is called as universal donor. Hope you have understood what will be, how do we identify the blood groups based on the antigen and antibody. So A group people will have antigen A and antibody B, and B group people will have antigen B and antibody A, and AB will have both the antigens but none of the antibodies. O people will not have both the antigens but will have both the antibodies. So universal donor, right? So for example like this. So we get this antibodies as serum in the market also, like we get this blood kit set and we have to take that serum. Here you get two types of serum called A and B. Suppose you want to identify the blood group of some XYZ, right? What you have to do is drop one drop of blood, and this is a microslide. Microslide is taken and drop one drop of blood on this particular part, one drop of blood here and one drop of blood here. Then add anti-serum, one drop of anti-serum here and one drop of anti-serum B. Here if it clots, it is called A group. Suppose if it clots here, it is called B group. Suppose it clots in both the surfaces, this is called AB. If it is not clotting in both the cells, it is called O. Why does it not clot here? Antibody does not contain any antigens. So you are adding antibody and again adding antibodies only. There is no blood clotting. So this way of testing blood is called agglutination test. Agglutination test. So this is how we identify the blood groups. Hope you have understood this. Now, what will be the possible blood groups? Who, like you should know who is called as a donor. One who donates blood is called as a donor. Who is called as a recipient? One who receives the blood is called as a recipient. So, donor and the recipient. So, here, so A can give for whom? A can give for A and AB. B can give for B and AB. AB can give for only AB. Can donate blood for only for AB. O can give for A, B, AB and O. Hence, we call this as what? Universal recipient. O is called universal donor. Who is called as a recipient? One who receives the blood is called as a recipient. One who donates the blood is called as a donor. So, this is a tabular column which will give us an idea about the possible donors and the recipients. A can give for A and AB group. B can give for B and AB group. AB can give for AB. Only for AB, right? O can give for A, for B, AB and O. Hope you have understood even this tabular column. Moving on to the last part of this session, that is about the inheritance of blood groups. So here the gene which controls the ABO blood group is called I gene. So isoagglutinogen. I refers for what? I refers for isoagglutinogen. And there are three allelic forms of I gene, that is IA, IB and small I. So what are the three allelic forms? Three allelic forms of I, that is, one is called IA, the other one is called IB, the other one is called small I. So what will be the possible inheritance of, what will be the genetic inheritance of the blood groups? So we can go like this with a tabular column. So this is blood group. So you can call this is blood group, and these are the genotypes. So what is it? If A is there, how do we write? We write it as IA, IA or IA small I. For B, we write it as IB, IB or IB small I. For AB, as you know, AB is an example for codominance. So you will write it as IA, IB. Then for O, we write it as small I, small I. So this is the possible, this is the genotypes of blood groups. Hope you have understood the concept of blood groups, right? So what are the four types of blood groups? Blood group A, B, AB and O. So what is the basis for identifying or determining the blood groups in human? It is based on the antigen and antibody reaction. What are antigens and antibody? Both are a type of proteins. Antigens are found on the surface or the membrane of RBC cell, whereas antibody is found in the blood plasma. What are the two types of antigens? Antigen A and antigen B. What are the two types of antibody? Antibody A and antibody B. So based on the antigen and antibody reaction, we'll be able to identify the blood group in man. And also we have learnt about the possible inheritance of what will be the genotypes of the blood groups, right? Hope you have understood the very important concepts what I have explained in today's session, right? All the concepts from examination point of view, what I have discussed in today's session is very, very important. Practice also is very important for you all people to be thorough with the concepts what I have explained. So what am I going to explain in the coming session? So in the coming session, I'll be dealing with what is polygenic inheritance and inheritance of two genes. I think in the previous session, I dealt with inheritance of one gene. But in the coming session, I am going to deal with the inheritance of two gene, which is also called as a dihybrid cross, right? And it is also a cross used to verify Mendel's second law called law of independent assortment. Hope you have understood all the concepts what I have explained in today's session. So till then, till I meet you all in the coming session, have a good day and thank you.